It's safe to say that Scuderia Ferrari is not what it used to be when it comes to F1. Not even close. With the championship drought that's fastly approaching 20 years, it's been pretty heartbreaking. But it's not just the fact that Ferrari hasn't been on top since 2008. No. It's what they've done. Or, I guess, a lack of what they've been able to do. You see, despite coming back year after year to support my favorite team, the odds of Ferrari ripping my heart out once again sharply increases with the introduction of each new season. Whether it's the utter incompetence, the predictable disappointment, the constant fallback on legacy success, or the racing gods tormenting me. Whatever it may be on any given week, I've concluded there's about a 90% chance I'm not gonna be okay come Sunday. This isn't supposed to be a video looking at the downfall of Ferrari, like over the years, or the reasons explaining why they're here today. No. This video's purpose is to show the emotional roller coaster this team has put me and many other people through over the past decade. Roughly. I'm going to be pointing out the bad, the worst, and the ridiculous nature of supporting Scuderia Ferrari. To get a little bit more serious here before we go fully into this, to anyone watching this video who doesn't keep up with F1 like I do, I'll try to explain motorsport the best I can to a bunch of furries. Don't worry though, Top Dog's got you, I won't let you fall. So while some of it may be sprinkled in here and there, this isn't a factual analysis that you might be lost on. This isn't some kind of essay. This is how it feels to be a Ferrari fan. So in order for us to navigate the clown barracks more safely and securely, I'm introducing this acronym to help better structure this very rickety foundation. Yes, this video needed an acronym. Yes, it's going to be fun. And yes, this was such a pressing matter I needed to change up my content. Because Ferrari is so basically inept at anything, I thought I might as well start with something that anybody can see as a problem.
It's terrible. Drives like a pig.
Oh, you can't say that.
Why not?
It's a Ferrari!
It's a shitbox. It understeers like crazy and the weight distribution is a disaster. It's amazing, all these facilities and you make a piece of crap like this.
If there's anything that Ferrari lacks in the modern era of F1, it's performance. The most recent iterations of their cars have been either garbage or mediocre at best, which if you want to win championships, that can't happen. Aside from lacking overall pace and consistency on race day, my biggest issue is when the cars don't work at all. Ferrari has had extremely bad reliability problems for a while now, but recently has peaked in the past 5 or so years. The car could fail for multiple mechanical reasons, from the simplest electronic issue to the engine literally on fire. It's almost like Ferrari is purposefully trying to find new ways to fuck up with how diverse their DNFs are. DNF, of course, standing for did not finish, meaning that you get 0 points for your efforts, a broken car, and a good old blow to the ego. It's a pretty hard thing to deal with, but there really isn't much that can be done about these kinds of failures. They mainly happen out of nowhere, they're pretty unpredictable, so on and so forth, though that doesn't mean nothing can be done about them. There is still something to fix. To give you some very brief examples, at the 2018 Spanish Grand Prix, Kimi Räikkönen retired after 25 laps due to a turbocharger power loss. In the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix of the same year, Räikkönen would retire from similar issues on lap 6. Russia 2019, Sebastian Vettel's MGU-K, which is a part that converts kinetic energy into electrical energy to help power the hybrid engine, fails on its out lap at the end of lap 26. Fun. On lap 8 of the US Grand Prix, Vettel killed the suspension by running over the curbs too hard, ending his race very quickly. At the 2020 Spanish Grand Prix, Charles Leclerc spins due to an electrical failure that he can't recover from, ending his race on lap 38. Italy 2020, Vettel's brakes overheat and melt on lap 6, sending him onto the first chicane's runoff area where he crashes into the slalom signs. At the 2023 Bahrain Grand Prix, Leclerc retired while running in 3rd place from a power unit issue. The Netherlands 2023, Leclerc gets too much damage on the floor of his car, leading to another DNF. Brazil 2023, Leclerc has hydraulic issues on the formation lap, sending him into the wall before the race even starts. I could go on here, that's the sad thing. So it's pretty obvious they can't build a reliable enough car to compete with the eventual champions of each season. Every time they fail to score points is a missed opportunity to keep pressure on other teams around them. It might be obvious to say, but it needs to be recognized that as a team, Ferrari can't get their shit together when it comes to maintaining a competitive car throughout the season. It's not just about pure blowouts either, like these. No. All the times that Ferrari has a decent qualifying session, where they start near the front of the grid, can be destroyed the next day with just slow pace. The car just can't keep up sometimes. It's really depressing to watch when you know Ferrari has built a one-trick pony that'll fall off after getting pole position or something close to that. It's like torture. It's slow and very painful. More often than not, they get sloppy and they just fall behind. Speaking of sloppy, though, that's only the rigid engineering side to F1. On the other side of the spectrum are the adaptive, strategic minds that help win races. You know, pit strategy, tire allocation, adapting to the weather, watching all the other teams and reacting to what they do, keeping things orderly and having multiple plans for each and every scenario that can occur. In other words, that stuff that Ferrari doesn't have. In fact, if you thought that me mentioning the mechanical problems is where Ferrari would have it bad, oh, then you were just so wrong, aren't you? Strategic blunders, unlike practical things like the car itself, can't be fixed by just testing certain elements, replacing parts, upgrades, etc. It takes true trial and error to sometimes figure out what can work. Luckily for Ferrari, they always seem to lead by example when it comes to shit decision making. So everyone around them can figure out very quickly what not to do. When Red Bull and Mercedes are still on their plan A's, you can bet your ass that Ferrari will be at least on plan G. The miscommunication between the pit wall and the drivers is a legit problem, which if you want to win races and championships, that can't happen. The random DNFs are bad enough, but the strategy mishaps are very just awful deep cuts that can easily send any Ferrari simp into a PTSD attack. At the Monaco Grand Prix, after leaving Sainz out on full wet tires for longer than anyone else up front, Ferrari would pit him on lap 21 to switch directly to dry, hard compound tires. Leclerc was sitting in 3rd at this point. He already pitted a couple laps earlier and switched to the intermediate tires, which during that time were probably the most efficient compound. But we see Charles following his teammate into the pits after some very frantic orders from the strategist. While halfway down the pit lane, which you can't back out of, Ferrari tells Charles over the radio to stay out.
And box now, box now, box for hard. Stay out. Fuck! What I'm doing? Tire, position 5. Multifunction tire, position 5.
Now, again, the guy is already committed to this initial decision, so he's rightfully pissed as he now has to wait for Sainz to finish getting his new tires in order for Charles to be put on the exact same ones, which wasn't the original call. When Red Bull managed their pit stops a couple laps earlier, both of their drivers were put on the intermediates. Ferrari, I guess, wanted to commit to the slick tires on a slightly wet track with Carlos, but decided, fuck it, I guess we're gonna have to bring in Charles. Wait, no, we can't. Okay, but now, wait, we're gonna have to because he's already here. Regardless, this left Leclerc with an extra pit stop he didn't need, so he lost a position to Max Verstappen in the process and was now in 4th, despite being on course to lead the race since lap 1 before this whole fucking mess. At Monaco especially, it's crucial to maintain P1, because the track is so narrow, there's barely any chance for any kind of overtaking. Red Bull was basically given 2 free overcuts without even thinking about it. They'd take advantage of Ferrari fucking up, of course, so they pit onto the slicks while Ferrari was struggling to get any kind of grip on their slicks. The race went on for a couple more laps, the top 2 teams overlapping each other in position, until Mick Schumacher would crash his Haas into the barriers near the swimming pool section. This horrific scene would give the session a red flag, stopping it completely to, clean it up. While waiting for the race to restart, the weather would brighten a bit, giving the teams an opportunity to switch compounds during the red flag. With a chance to get fresh, new tires, Ferrari did absolutely fucking nothing, keeping their used, slower tires while Red Bull put on medium compound tires to last to the very end of the race, not only giving them a pace advantage, but also a pace advantage on a drying track. The race would finish just like that, though. Checo and Max finishing P1 and P3, while Ferrari finished P2 and P4. At a race where track position matters more than anything, they fucked it. They fucked it bad. During the French Grand Prix, Carlos Sainz was battling Sergio Perez for position when, out of nowhere and for seemingly no reason, Ferrari wanted him to box in the middle of fighting a rival driver.
But can he get down the inside, going into the final turn, I wonder, or around the penultimate corner on the outside? Sainz is trying everything.
Box, Carlos, box.
Why were they telling him to pit right then? Were they not watching the action? Carlos Sainz got ahead of Sergio Perez. Perez was fighting him back. Carlos Sainz down the main straight, fighting ahead, staying ahead, and up into the podium places.
He's got more grip than the cars around them. Why are Ferrari telling him to stop at the moment? Next up, Hamilton in P2.
This, of course, was already after another mishandled pit lane issue, when Ferrari unsafely released Carlos back into the race right in front of Alex Albon during a safety car. The FIA, which is the governing body of the sport, decided that was too close for comfort and gave Sainz a 5-second time penalty that he would serve during his second pit stop of the race due to what Ferrari called tire concerns. He would be shot out of podium contention for the remainder of the race, finishing in P5. Let's see here. At the British Grand Prix, Ferrari kept Leclerc out on old hard tires to defend against Perez and Hamilton, which didn't work out, shocker, shocker, making a possible Ferrari 1-2 finish a Ferrari 1-4. Though the big blow, the large one, the true master plan of Ferrari would come at the Hungarian Grand Prix, where Sainz and Russell were in a head-to-head battle for the lead. George would stay ahead by a couple of seconds before he and Sainz pitted together, having slow stops, allowing Charles to overcut his teammate and overtake Russell into turn 1. With the Ferrari now leading the race, Leclerc would extend his gap in anticipation of Verstappen, who started 10th but was charging up the grid. Max pit again early, so Leclerc had to react. The Red Bull would undercut the Mercedes and dispatch of Carlos pretty quickly, leaving Charles to be the only one in Max's way. He could have fought for P1 here. He absolutely could have. This was necessary. If not for the fact that Ferrari put him on the slowest and worst compound imaginable.
Charles Leclerc being told to box to go on to the hard compound tyre. Ted, to you.
I think they've already lost it. I think they've already lost the undercut with Sainz. So, yeah, it is the Monegasque who pits, and it is the hard tyre that he goes on to. Wow, that's brave, based on how it's been going with everybody else. And George Russell pits as well onto the medium. How's this?
Which makes more sense.
The hards were not the tire for this track. Not the tire for the weekend. Period. Yet, in the most desperate time for Ferrari to make a stand, they execute a disgusting strategy call that makes their driver slower. Despite the fact that Alpine tried the hard tires earlier and failed to gain any kind of pace, Ferrari put their man on that very tire. Max would pass Charles with ease into turn 1. To add to the humiliation, Verstappen would spin in a 360 on lap 41, giving Leclerc the lead again, but very briefly, because, once again, the much more prepared Red Bull would pass whatever the fuck Ferrari just gave Charles. Oh, but it doesn't end there. No, it does not end there, because later on, maybe it was a way to fix, their mistake from earlier, whatever the fuck that meant by this point, Ferrari would pit Charles again onto the soft tires, way after any realistic pit window was open. The only thing that did was securely put Leclerc out of contention for even a podium. Again, roughly 30 laps earlier, he was fighting for a win. But not anymore, he finished in 6th. With Carlos finishing in 4th due to a lack of pace, and Max winning this whole thing, it just kind of felt like another day for Red Bull, and another very painful day for Ferrari. And you know what, fuck it. As one final exhibit of humiliation, one final little cherry on top of this, they forgot how to count to 4 at the Dutch Grand Prix. Isn't that exciting? If there are still any doubts that this team is unbearable at times, then we have so much to get to. The absolute clownery Ferrari displays behind the pit wall is so embarrassing it makes me want to die. No one else fucks up this bad. There's actual truth when I said Ferrari leads by example in what not to do. All the other teams need sometimes is to just do the opposite of Ferrari, and they've won. They've won. It's that easy and that depressing. The fact that it's consistent too just makes it even worse. It's crushing and morale breaking. I feel incredibly defeated watching it. I can't imagine being the ones directly involved in such disappointment. But maybe I can try to bring you a little closer.
I am stupid. I am stupid. I am stupid. I switch off everything.
So an aspect I haven't fully touched on yet, but have mentioned in passing, are the problems with the drivers. Not everything is their fault, of course, I already made that very clear. However, that doesn't mean nothing is their fault. Sometimes the only things the drivers are at the mercy of are themselves. They can't get out of their own way, and that's a problem too. Ferrari drivers in recent years have a history of being self-deprecating jokes by themselves. No one is perfect, but too many mistakes on track can lead to no results at all. The drivers are victims in a lot of cases, but they aren't immune to failure, which, if you want to win championships, yeah, that can't happen. When Kimi Räikkönen was still with the team, he debatably swerved into Fernando Alonso on lap 1 of the 2015 Austrian Grand Prix, hit the wall on lap 11 of the 2016 Monaco Grand Prix, spun and hit the wall at the 2016 Brazilian Grand Prix, collided with Valtteri Bottas on lap 1 of the Spanish Grand Prix. Some fun examples. Most famously, though, he and his teammate at the time, Sebastian Vettel, would crash together on lap 1 of the 2017 Singapore Grand Prix. So as embarrassing as that last one was, there's no way anything like that would happen again. Right? Right. Speaking of Sebastian Vettel, while he isn't as crash-prone as some other drivers, Seb was known for spinning the car. A lot. He could have all the momentum in the world. In some cases, he was leading races. He was on track to winning races. Then, out of nowhere, he would just turn the car into a stationary death trap. That's not to say Vettel didn't have any DNFs of his own, though. No. He would pathetically crash into the wall after suffering some understeer on lap 52 of the 2018 German Grand Prix. Then he and his newer teammate Charles Leclerc would crash into each other at the 2019 Brazilian Grand Prix. Okay, well, that's like the same thing. Surely that wouldn't happen. It happened again. The 2020 Styrian Grand Prix was the last time these two would come together on track. No, not because they got their shit together and stopped acting like they were both blind and deaf. It was mainly because it was super rare to see Vettel anywhere near Charles. You see, past a certain point in 2019, Seb wasn't the same driver he was a year prior. Some people speculated it was too many ouchies after the missed championships in 2017 and 2018, but no. More likely than not, it was the growing pressure from being paired up with this young phenom. Leclerc would out-qualify and outpace Vettel very quickly in his first year with Ferrari back in 2019. He was promised to be a brand new second coming that would finally bring an end to Ferrari's title drought. Seb fell behind and eventually left the team at the end of 2020. Ironically enough, Leclerc would barely be seen as a true threat, even after Vettel leaving. Charles Leclerc is very prone to his own mistakes. His endeavors into the barrier walls and gravel traps have been consistently documented in every grueling, painful detail. Since his start with the Scuderia back in 2019, Leclerc definitely has sparks of talent, ingenuity, passion, and a hunger to win. He's absolutely a big reason why so many Ferrari fans have hoped to get another championship by the end of the decade. However, that doesn't mean he's perfect, or even close to achieving his goal. Charles Leclerc still has a problem when it comes to controlling his car. A more technical term is driver maturity. It's something that Max Verstappen has claimed on his way to 3 world titles. Confidence in your machinery is very important when on track. You have a good idea of when to push and when not to push. Now, to be fair, Charles hasn't had the engineering prowess that Max gets to enjoy, so we can cut him some slack, just a little bit. Though it still doesn't change the fact he's the one in the red cockpit. The origin of Leclerc's lack of awareness can be found here, at the 2019 Monaco Grand Prix, where after starting in P15, he'd make up a couple places to P12 before unsuccessfully trying to overtake Nico Hülkenberg in the last few corners of lap 8. He'd hit the wall, suffering a right rear tire puncture. More infamously, though, Charles unknowingly cemented part of his legacy during the second round of qualifying for the 2019 Azerbaijan Grand Prix. In one mistake, in 3 simple words.
I am stupid. I am stupid. I am stupid.
Continuing through some growing pains, Leclerc's self-inflicted wounds don't stop there. At the 2019 German Grand Prix, he would beach his car about a third of the way through the race. The whole situation was a mess due to the fact that there was some rain. These weren't the best conditions, and Charles wasn't the only one to do this. However, the fact it did happen to him can't be ignored. I already mentioned the double DNF at the Styrian Grand Prix in 2020, but Leclerc would crash again at Ferrari's home race in Monza that same year. Pretty bad, too. Pretty bad. Like, very bad, actually. This was that fun result. Then, on lap 1 of the Sakir Grand Prix near the end of the season, he would collide with Sergio Perez at turn 4, damaging his own car in the process and collecting Verstappen into the wall. Both him and Max would be out because of this. Perez, on the other hand, would somehow manage to climb back from last place and win the whole thing, making that his first career win in over 190 starts. All credit to Checo for the win, he absolutely deserved it, but the only thing I can think of is how embarrassing this is for Leclerc. He not only fucks up and causes a wreck, but the guy he hit goes on to win the race. On lap 1 of the 2023 Australian Grand Prix, Leclerc once again collided with another driver. This time, it was Lance Stroll, which is embarrassing for a completely different reason. Nevertheless, he spun into the gravel and couldn't get out. The number 16 Ferrari was beached. Again. Carlos Sainz doesn't take as many risks as Charles. His main issue, I think, is finding pace in general, or when he needs to. It seems like at crucial times to make a push, Carlos can't find it all the time. If you want an example of Carlos fucking up though, like really bad, look no further than the 2023 Belgian Grand Prix. It was the opening lap. Sainz locked his brakes into turn 1 and collided with Oscar Piastri's McLaren. Both cars would suffer damage, leading to the immediate DNF of Piastri. However, Carlos would keep going for about 20 more laps, barely holding on to P5. He would eventually be passed by Alonso, Tsunoda, and the 2 Williams of Albon and Sargent, which is very embarrassing. The damage was just too much though, and Sainz would pathetically retire on lap 22, bringing the car into the pits. That's a lot to deal with in only a couple of years. As You may have noticed, Ferrari has gone through a couple of drivers since I started watching in 2015. Driver changes are a normal, healthy thing for any team to do. To try out new combinations, maybe get some different talent, or, to make some money, regardless. At the end of the 2024 season, Ferrari's current driver lineup will come to an end, bringing 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton onto the team. Some people have claimed this will truly bring an end to the drought, but I think those people are stupid. Very stupid, actually. I'm in the camp that says Hamilton's arrival will bring nothing new to the table. Ferrari only got him here for the marketing. After all, there's nothing like having the most successful driver with the most successful team, right? Great for the image, but horrible when reality sets in. Ferrari don't have the structure to give him or anyone a winning formula at the moment. They've proven that in great detail. So no, I do not believe even Lewis Hamilton can suddenly fix Ferrari simply just by showing up. He does not have that capability anymore. He just doesn't. It's obvious that in his older years, he is mortal. Now that's all to say, everyone is human. Even professionals. That's completely reasonable. What's not reasonable is when the mistakes become so frequent, they start heavily affecting the total points. Knowing that when I see a yellow flag alert pop up and have this overall dread about it being caused by a Ferrari is a problem. The fact that I can feel that, By that point, they aren't just accidents or mistakes. They are genuine obstacles that need to be avoided. And for a professional team, that shouldn't happen. Though we still have one major point to get to. This will take everything I've talked about that took place over the course of years and compress it into the hardest pill to swallow for any Ferrari fan. Here goes nothing. That's right, I will be condensing the entire 2022 Formula 1 season into the span of one chapter. It means that much. Yes, it does. This god-awful circus is what rebirthed the idea of Ferrari falling on even harder times. Like I said before, it hits all 3 previous points. Somehow in excruciating detail, but it does its job, to say the least. So here we go again, are you ready? While leading the Spanish Grand Prix, Charles Leclerc would have problems with his MGU-H and turbocharger. He would retire on lap 27, losing a massive margin he was able to build up that entire time. At the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, Carlos Sainz would DNF on lap 9 due to hydraulic issues, which led to his race coming to an end in a runoff area near turn 4. At the same race, 14 laps later, Leclerc's engine would go bang bang, making the race in Baku another double DNF for Ferrari. So much fun, right? The Austrian Grand Prix was a different beast entirely. Ferrari were flying, being able to easily catch their main rivals, and do it multiple times, in fact. Leclerc was in the lead after passing Verstappen for the second time in the race. Sainz was quickly approaching as well, making a Ferrari 1-2 very possible. But then lap 57 came, when Carlos would slow down on the back straight and have his power unit literally burst into flames. If you thought I was kidding earlier when I said that, you should know the drill by this point. That's your fault. That's on you. Leclerc would win this race, but not without his own problems. His pace would slow down due to his throttle pedal actually getting stuck every time he pressed down on it, meaning that for the last couple of laps he had to manually lift off the gas by pulling the accelerator back with his foot. It's never a clean win, is it, Ferrari? As for the strategy blunders this time around, I have a little surprise for you, a little secret that I was keeping. For those who already know, you were probably waiting for me to, reveal it, but all the incidents I outlined in Chapter 2 happened this year. Yes, every single one of them. Alright, enough said. Let's just get a move on to the driver mistakes. In Australia, Carlos Sainz would have his adventure into the gravel, beaching himself and DNF. That smooth operation would continue at Imola, where he was somewhat at fault for colliding with Danny Ricciardo into the first chicane, once again leaving him in the gravel, beached. Devastatingly, at the French Grand Prix, good old Chucky wouldn't be done fucking things up just yet. He'd spin off at turn 11, crashing into the wall, giving us this gem of a radio message.
No!
In Japan, Carlos hydroplaned into the barriers just after the hairpin turn on lap 2, bringing out the red flag, which started another talk about more controversy. I don't know. I stayed up till 3 in the morning for that one, Carlos. How fucking could you? That takes care of all the DNFs that season, in which Ferrari was at fault in some capacity. But there are still smaller problems that affected points too. For instance, at Imola, while trying to chase down the 2 Red Bulls, Leclerc made up huge gaps on the soft compound tires, pressuring the 2 Bulls into pitting. The thing is, though, Charles would push a little too hard going into the final chicane at turns 14 and 15, hopping the high curbs and spinning into the wall. Charles managed to get the car back on track, but he collected some suspension damage and had to replace his front wing in the pits. He fell from 3rd down to 9th. He somehow made up the slack to take P6 by the end. However, the damage was already done. A podium turned into just a points finish in one easily avoidable mistake. Dropping points finishes would affect Ferrari throughout the season in other ways too, but I thought that would be the best example. Accounting for all the failures Ferrari suffered during this one season alone is a tidal wave of a task. They managed to rack up about 14 major incidents that cost them points in 2022. If we were to put a number value on that using this modern F1 point system, Ferrari could have theoretically finished the season with 746 points. Instead, they finished with 554. Now, before people start questioning my math here, these are the most liberal assumptions based on where they failed from, keeping those points from the point of failure. So this is just an idea. This is a scenario-based thing. To take some major points away from Red Bull would have been so important. For reference, Red Bull won the Constructors' Championship with 759 points in that year. I'm not saying they would have definitely been getting both championships or anything like that, but the fight would have been much closer in comparison to what the reality was. The reason why I bring this point up is because Ferrari did build a competitive car. They can put some impressive numbers up on one-lap pace during qualifying, but can't convert during race day. That's why the season is such a loss. That's why it's so Ferrari. At the very beginning, these 3 races and their final results could have defined the season. Ferrari were on top, combine that with Red Bull having DNFs of their own, and you get a comfortable margin in points. Though, as I've explained, Ferrari's embarrassing clownery would shine, falling behind and never recovering. Some simple evidence can actually be found in Leclerc's own career stats. He has 25 pole positions to his name, which is a pretty impressive number, until you realize he only has 5 wins from that position. His pole-to-win conversion rate is only about 20%. He actually only has 2 wins where he didn't start on pole, comparing that to Verstappen, who has 40 pole positions but 32 wins, making his pole-to-win conversion rate at about 80%. Max overall has 61 career wins too, so putting the difference between these 2 drivers in non-pole wins at 27. That is 675 solid points separating them. It's honestly really scary when the numbers come out. Ferrari would fall off early in 2022, never fully recovering. In 2023, they'd start pitifully, letting multiple teams overtake them in the first half of the season. Thankfully, and somehow, they'd come back a little to finish 3rd overall. So, with all that said, where are they now? Ferrari, unlike in previous years, would have an optimistic start to the 2024 season. Looking at these results up to the Monaco Grand Prix, they weren't leading anything solidly, but They were way more consistent, raising their flags high with 2 wins, a couple podiums, some impressive saves, and even some luck on their side, which is something they never really get. They were the team in prime position to take down Red Bull this year. If anyone could do it, it looked to be Ferrari. The RB20 wasn't as dominant as its predecessors. That pace just wasn't as dominant from Red Bull. It was time for the SF24 to show the F1 world who was boss.
Put the slick tyres on.
Showy box again. It's raining too much.
It's gonna last only 1-2 laps.
For sake, it's raining too much. I'm losing like 10 seconds and up.
Copy, we box for Inters. And Charles, we will retire the car. We will retire the car.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Copy.
Charles Leclerc's first retirement of the season.
Sainz has his own moment. Oh, it's gutting for Albon.
Sainz spinning in to the Williams driver and eliminating him from the Grand Prix.
Yeah, sorry for that. Yeah, I was controlled, so I got away. Understood?
So that didn't work. Once again, they fucked it. They fucked it bad. The circus came riding back into town, and the orchestral downfall of Ferrari was entirely laid out. It's impressive that this team can manage to fit so much failure into one race. Genuinely, you'd think they'd get an award by this point at the FIA's gala. After that weekend, Ferrari wouldn't recover, just like they can't almost any year. They'd fall back in contention, losing their points position to McLaren and their overall pace to both the Papaya team and sometimes the Mercedes, diving headfirst into another season of disappointment. In retrospect, you seemingly can't get more depressing than supporting Scuderia Ferrari. I can list all the factual failures that I want, but the feeling and the knowledge that this team has flashes of brilliance but can't keep it consistent and follow through on them, it's more miserable. It's honestly more miserable. In 2021, they weren't fighting for a title. They were very clear on that, actually, from the very beginning. It was one of the only times Ferrari wouldn't inflate their numbers or hype, and you know what? It was one of their best seasons. You probably didn't know that, though. Something else was going on at the time, or something. I don't know. I heard it was filled with controversy, too. Maybe I'll make a video on it. Maybe. I don't know. I want to make a statement that despite me making fun of all aspects of this team, especially the drivers, actually, during this video, both of them have my utmost respect. Sainz's amazing strategic fight with Mercedes in Singapore was the stuff of legends, with some help from Red Bull being vulnerable on that weekend and George Russell being George Russell. Carlos would manage to truly have a smooth operation, landing the only non-Red Bull win of 2023. Charles Leclerc would draw the short stick 2 years in a row with disastrous cars. The talent and grit, though, he displays during those 2 off-seasons was insane. Dragging these shitboxes to finishes they had no right to be in. I just wanted to say a quick thank you to the driver lineup before they go. While not everything has been the best, that doesn't mean you can't make the best of it. I really am going to miss these two together. I really will. The few wins that we even got in 2024, Carlos's post-appendix victory, I guess I'll call it, Charles finally winning his home Grand Prix in Monaco, and then shocking the world as out of nowhere he wins in Monza. It really did touch my heart. I have no positive sweet nothings to whisper into your ear, though. Fuck you. As we continue into the latter half of the 2024 season, there isn't much to say, but really the same. I'm not going to make some bold prediction about what this team might do. All I can look at are the adjacent series Ferrari is in and hope that level of success returns to their bread and butter. Honestly, out of all of this, And I do mean all of this. The biggest insult I've received as a Ferrari fan is probably being compared to a Dallas Cowboys fan by some ESPN article from like a year ago. Even with all the soul searching I just went through, going over the depressing, the bad, the desperate, the embarrassing, and the lack of awareness and consistency this team can give you week to week, to answer the question, how does it feel to be a Ferrari fan? Well, from experience, it's an emotional roller coaster from the highest peaks to the lowest valleys. But at the end of the day, just like any professional sports team and watching a franchise grow just like you will, it's a story that might never end. But currently, it can be a cycle of nothing but pain.